Good morning. I'm Carlton Sharp, pastor of Faith Christian Center Church right here in Beaumont, Texas. And we're here on what's happening in our neighborhood. And today my special guest is the mayor of the city of Beaumont, Mayor Becky Ames. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, indeed.
We have a lot going on.
We have a lot going on.
We do.
I mean, you've been having your feet to the fire. I mean, running and going and everything. I mean, with all of the things that's going on in our city. So,
yes.
So, hey, listen, let's get right into it since we're here.
All right.
Tropical Storm Imelda.
What a different kind of storm. They're all different.
Yeah, I mean, we just came out of this 2 years ago.
We did. Totally different type, though. I mean, everyone that I've been involved in have been different. And, you know, even the National Weather Service was saying that we were going to have a rain event. Basically, one that we would typically have 5 to 8, 10 inches max.
Yeah.
And then the sky fell.
So nobody in the emergency management team had any idea that it was going to be like it was.
Well, yeah, the emergency management team, we go off of our state, weather. We have the weather service that we work with. When we know that there's something in the Gulf, we'll start doing calls several days out. We weren't doing that because it wasn't coming.
Yeah, just a little rain.
I'm not a meteorologist and I'm not a weather person. However, I mean, they even just said it was not expected at all.
So what was the biggest difference between this storm and Harvey?
Well, Harvey, it was almost as bad. It just didn't last as long.
Yeah.
And so what happened with Harvey is it went over several days, and so it just stood and stood and stood over us. And so we were constantly dealing with it. But this one came on so fast. The saving grace was that it came on Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
Early Thursday morning. If it had been like when people were out and about more, it would have been even worse.
Yeah.
So, but it was just a downpour. And then the next day, it started draining off right away, where Harvey stayed for days.
Right.
But they were both rain events, without a doubt. And, we remember Rita was a wind event, and Ike was a water event, but not a rainwater event, but a rising water event. So you have to respond to all of them differently.
Now, another difference was that it did not impact the whole city like it did before.
Exactly. Well, and with Harvey, we really didn't have as many homes in the city limits damaged as we did with Tropical Storm Imelda. In the city limits with Harvey, we had the north side, which is near Pine Street because of the water, and the Natchez River. And we had the northwest side, which is like on the other side of 105 and those neighborhoods over there.
Next to the elevated canal.
This one was, I guess the worst impact was right there at Washington and I-10.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And I-10, same thing, was close. I-10 looked like a river. And that was the worst impact. And then far west, Willow Creek and Amelia.
Yeah.
Which didn't really have much impact in Harvey. Some did, but not all. And so, someone said, but I saw one underpass and it was totally empty, and then I saw another one that was all the way to the top. It was just really in bands, and it was hard. I mean, I was out and about on that Wednesday night. I had an event that I went to, and I drove there not thinking anything about it. And when I came home about 9:30, 10 o'clock that night, maybe 10:30, I don't remember, Lucas, people were starting to flood out already.
Wow.
And we had 7,300 calls on Wednesday evening into Thursday morning.
7,300 calls?
7,300 calls to help people that were either, for whatever reason,
they were impacted by the storm.
Yes, and so we ended up working with BISD, and we got the buses, and we started evacuating people. We're not a shelter city because of where we're located, especially when there are other storms in the Gulf. But we did decide, in this case, we have to open a shelter, and we immediately opened the Civic Center.
So Mayor, many people question what is your responsibility in the storm? Because a lot of stuff was going on, but what is the mayor's responsibility?
Well, my responsibility always, whether it's a storm or any type of natural disaster, or if there's something that happens on the freeway that impacts people, people in a negative way or an emergency. The mayor is the emergency management director. Now, I don't have to make all those decisions. I have
Right.
a great team of people,
Right.
and I appoint an emergency management coordinator that does this day to day. And his name is Tim Oknichek. He's SWAT. He's a captain
Yeah, I know
in the
Captain
police
Tim.
department. He's does an excellent job. And so what we ended up doing is we would call it standing up our emergency operations center. We actually did that on Wednesday afternoon, evening. Before we even knew how bad it was going to be, when we first started getting calls, we stood it up. I did declare it a natural disaster on Wednesday evening to help people with their insurance, their stop business insurance for companies.
Right.
And we did that right away, right once we saw, that we were having people flood out. And that was done very, very early. This storm was difficult because we didn't get the national coverage.
Right.
I mean, we got some. Yeah. But, so what would happen is we really had to lobby the governor to do a natural disaster for our city in Texas or other cities that are surrounding. I'm worried about Beaumont. And then the president for a national. And because if we hadn't gotten that done, we wouldn't have FEMA. We wouldn't have the FEMA money that will be, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so that was what was different because it was quick. The next day, most of the roads were pretty clear.
It was.
By 11, 12, noonish Thursday, most, not all, but most of them were pretty clear. Where with Harvey, it stayed and stayed and stayed. So you had the national news coming in from all over the country. They didn't have time. But honestly, that national news helps us. Because it lets other people see, the governor, the president.
Right.
And but we did end up getting that done, so it's all okay. We were afraid that we weren't going to meet the criteria for a national disaster because you have to have so much money, millions of dollars that will be spent.
Now let's make it clear here that no system can handle that much water that fast.
It's not possible. And if it was, if the technology was there, it would cost so much money. Our taxes would be, you can't do it. And the thing is, a lot of people think that the city does the drainage, but we work with Drainage District 6. So any road or any drainage that we do is really through DD6. We don't really do the drainage. Now, you might remember the Calder project, which was a FEMA project to take 1,000 homes and businesses out of the flood zone. We did do that more so because that FEMA came in and helped us with that, and that was a $65 million project.
Wow.
And so that was probably the largest that they've ever granted, and then that helps the whole city because Calder goes all the way through.
Yep.
And so we were hoping that we could get something like that for this, but I mean, really and truly, it has to be an existing street, and we're working on Washington right now.
Right, and that didn't help it either.
It did not, because that was the exact place where we're working. Which was the hardest hit.
So now let's talk about FEMA. And the FEMA declaration.
Okay, so the city of Beaumont did a disaster declaration on Wednesday evening of the storm, and before midnight, and we got the one from the governor maybe several days later, and then the president maybe a week later, and maybe 10 days. And so what happens is then that starts all the balls rolling.
Right.
And so for our citizens here, I want to clarify something because there's been some misconception. So the Red Cross is here. I'm going to look at y'all. The Red Cross is here, and I've had so many calls, and I've seen on Facebook the long lines, and the city ought to do something about it. We aren't in charge of the Red Cross now, but they are working, I think, as fast as they can. So what happened is they had some different sites here locally before last week, and then there was a big event at the Civic Center on Saturday.
Right.
The line went all the way around. The city, the only way we were involved in that was we donated the
facility.
space.
Yeah.
So we were not in charge of that. That was the Southeast Texas Disaster Relief.
Okay.
And then the Red Cross was there. So there were so many people going into the Red Cross, and there was a lot of misconception about what you had to do to qualify. And so now, through tomorrow, we did give the Central Community Center at Central Park.
Okay.
Over there at 4th and Stagg, is it
Yeah,
Stagg?
Stagg,
But Central Park area. We gave them that building, and they have been there from 10 to 7 every day, starting last Sunday, I believe. Monday at the latest.
Okay.
But anyway, they're there through tomorrow.
Okay.
That's not the city, that's the Red Cross.
Red Cross.
And something important to know for our citizens is that what I'm understanding, you don't qualify unless you got 18 inches or more into your home.
Yeah.
Which, that's a lot.
But that's their criteria.
But
the city doesn't. The city doesn't put that criteria on.
We do not.
Right.
And so the next step that we're working on, that I really worked a lot on yesterday, is to get a disaster recovery center like we had for Harvey.
Okay.
And that was if you remember, that was at Gateway Shopping Center.
Yes.
And so we have to find a place for it, and that location's not available, but I think we've got a place. I don't want to announce it yet because I don't want any confusion in case it doesn't happen. But we will be hearing that in the next day or two.
Okay.
And what that will be is where a one-stop shop, if you will.
And everybody just go there?
You go there, and it won't be the long lines because every, like FEMA, Red Cross, any other entities that just
we'll
like the last time will be in that one place, and you go from like a booth to a booth to a booth. We need about 10,000 feet, and they like it for free.
Wow.
So it's not the easiest thing to find, but we're getting there. So
they like it for free.
The FEMA does, yeah. But they'll still do it even if we can't find something. But that's been a challenge. But I think we're about there as of maybe this morning. But we'll be making an announcement on that. We did put out a press release yesterday to kind of clarify some of these things. The city doesn't give out money. We don't. That's not what we do during the storm.
Right.
But Red Cross does, FEMA does, and there's other entities. Oh, we have had the unbelievable support. Operation Blessing came in, and they mucked out a lot of houses for free for people that didn't have insurance.
Right.
And then there's another group that'll come in after them and rebuild. And then there's Team Rubicon, who's a group of veterans. I believe that they're out of West Virginia.
Wow.
Or is it Operation Blessing? I can't remember where they're all from.
Yeah.
Team Rubicon came in, and they're a group of veterans, and they're doing the same. They're mucking out and rebuilding. And then we're also talking to another group that want to come in and do 250 homes for uninsured people. And this is important because, as I understand it, and I don't make the FEMA rules either, but as I understand it, if a home flooded with Harvey and they got FEMA relief,
they had to maintain their flood insurance.
They did, and if they did not, they're not going to be able to qualify for FEMA again.
Wow.
That's what I'm told. That could change.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is it's not set in stone, and that's why it's so hard for people like me to give the information to the citizens, because sometimes they say, well, these are so many impacted families, we're going to change it. And we do have something to do with that, because we talk to the powers to be and say, we really need your help here. And that's what we try to do.
And that has to be frustrating for mayor to have people who want to do stuff but not able to because of their regulations and all this kind of thing.
Exactly.
And then give it out to the public.
Exactly. But I got to say, we've had some churches and different organizations that have come in, and they're really helping a lot of people. And like I said, in the city limits, we have a worse situation than we did with Harvey.
Yeah.
In the city limits. Now, you could say a worse situation regarding homes, not regarding water. Because we remember that. And a lot of people, there was, that's the hardest thing in a storm is to me, as the mayor, is to try to get the right information out. Because people hear rumors, they post it on Facebook. I mean, we were going to turn the water off. Our water was never compromised because we didn't have the issue at Pine Street or the river.
So how do you combat that? I mean, getting the right information out.
We had 2 full-time people monitoring constantly.
Wow.
During this storm. We didn't have that luxury during Harvey because we were so stretched.
Yeah,
but we were stretched in this storm too because so many of our employees were not able to get to the EOC. And so, because we had more employees affected with this storm than we did with Harvey. And what people might not realize, you have every department working. I mean, you might have someone that works in signs at the city answering phones. They all have their own jobs, and we plan for that throughout the year. We do mock emergencies throughout the year.
Yeah.
We have a person like, for instance, our chief of technology is in charge of logistics. Totally different than what he does
on a daily basis.
And so they may not realize that that's just how it works. Yeah. I'd invite anyone, like an organization or a group, if they ever want to tour our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center, to see it, because you honestly have to see it to understand what really goes on, and what, because we have a great after Rita we got a grant and we were able to put this in. And so the only disappointment to me is in giving the tour, we can't bring people through when we're stood up.
When a storm is...
when it's happening, because you have so much confidential stuff there.
Yeah.
And so you can't bring people through when it's packed.
Yeah.
But you can get the feeling about it, how it works. 911 is in there, 311. We did the same thing we did with Harvey, because 911 was being so flooded with calls. We told people it was not emergent. Even if you have water in your house, if you're not in danger, please call 311. We will come get you. But we had to do it. We got so many at one time. It was more critical from that standpoint, because we got so many at one time that we had to prioritize.
And you said 7,300 calls. I mean,
and within that evening,
that 36-hour period.
Yeah, or less.
Or less.
Yes.
And I mean, so how did you prioritize? How you were going to be able to
life safety.
Life safety.
Absolutely. They knew. They had questions they asked. Like, I had people tell me I had to wait for 16 hours to be rescued, but they might have had water coming in their house, but they weren't in danger.
Got you.
We had people that were in their attics or on their roof, or that are elderly people that had nowhere else. We have a list, and they know what to do, and they have to prioritize.
Yeah. And so that's what people need to understand who are watching today. That, hey, listen, I mean, just because they didn't get to you right when you call, I mean,
it wasn't that they weren't trying.
Yeah, and it's not that you were not important.
No.
It's just that there's some people.
No, everybody's important.
Exactly.
But I think that everyone would agree, especially if it's your loved one, if they're in danger for their life, you're going to want us to go there first.
Yeah, exactly.
It was about life safety, not convenience.
I got you. All right.
And I hate to say it like that, but
that's the issue.
That is the issue. And like I said, we had to open a shelter that we didn't plan on, so we had to get that going. And there was a lot of people.
Because you had the Civic Center and Central High School.
Yes, Central was done later, and so. But the Civic Center we did that night.
Yes.
And we had, Red Cross couldn't get there. So we were actually running a shelter, and that's not what we do. but we I mean, so it might not have been perfect at the very beginning, because you have to set up food and all kinds of things.
Oh, man, yeah. I understand, because we were involved in that.
It was busy at the EOC in those days.
Okay, Mayor, well, let's get past Imelda.
Boy, let's hope we never have to do it again.
That's it.
I just want to make sure I didn't forget to tell anybody anything, because, and also let me just say this, that we have been working on mitigation plans since Harvey. It's not like we just said, oh, heck, we got another one coming. And we were working on mitigation plans for our water, like when people were saying, are we going to lose our water again? That got on all over Facebook.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even close. We did have one sewer pump go down, but it was only for a couple of hours. I don't even think anyone was really affected. It was just because we can withstand that for just one.
Right.
But it came right back up, and but other than that, we actually didn't have any issues. Now we have a lot of facilities that were damaged.
Okay.
So it wasn't just the homes, but we had probably, I think, 10 facilities
throughout the city?
like our facilities, like the police department basement and different things like that we're having to work with too. So we're kind of in the same boat, so to speak, as some of the people we have
trying to recover.
areas. Yes.
Okay, well, I think we got everything covered.
I think so. If I think of something else, I'll bring it up. But my main thing was to let everybody know that the areas they're going to now that are in city buildings, that's the Red Cross, but we will be opening up a disaster recovery center, which we don't really operate. We just assist them in finding a spot within the city, and it needs to be in the city limits. We try to get it as close as we can to the affected population.
Right, and once that information is completed,
we will have it front and center. The news will have it, the paper, and that's another thing too. There's some people that are so in tune to Facebook, that's where they get their news.
Yeah.
But some elderly people don't. So people tell me, you should put more on Facebook, you should put more on Facebook. We were posting on Facebook constantly.
Wow.
But the thing with Facebook is if you post something,
it goes down.
It goes down, and you got to scroll down.
Yeah, it's not a continuous.
That's right.
Yeah,
so that's another challenge. But believe me, after something like this, we always look at best practices and how we can do it better, because you can always do better.
And then some of our news broadcasts were out because they got flooded.
Yes, right,
exactly. Our local news was
Channel 12 was flooded.
Underwater.
Yeah, they did end up coming back at another location, but it took a day or so. So, and then some people lost power, so they didn't have that. Not as many this time though.
Yeah,
the power was not so bad. Not like Harvey.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So we threw in a Tropical Storm Imelda. Now let's get to the fiscal year 2020 budget.
Yes, we just our fiscal year runs from October 1st through September 30th every year. So we just approved a new budget, 1920. It's the 2020 fiscal year. And I'm happy to say even though we have a lot of issues to deal with, our tax rate is going to stay the same. We're not going to raise the tax rate.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Yes, got it. Now, that's done.
That's done.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
So,
let's dispel that rumor that we're raising our taxes. We're not raising our taxes.
Now, if your property value went up, that's good for you, because that's more money in your bank.
But it's good if you will sell it.
Yeah. So if the property value went up, which is, city doesn't do that, that's the appraisal district, but if it did, then your taxes could go up dollar-wise because your house or wherever it is, increased in value.
Now this year our budget is $283 million.
289 is our expected expenditures for 2020.
So that's about a 6-7% increase from over last year. I think last year was 265.
I think it ended up, that was see, you have to think we're doing projected now. Okay. But the 2019 ended up being more.
Oh, okay.
Because some of it was because of Harvey sales taxes. Sales taxes are our biggest source of revenue. A lot of people think it's their taxes that they pay for their homes or their businesses. That's not the case. 33% of our revenue comes from our sales taxes.
And that's good to know that your property taxes are included, your sales tax are included, what the city call utility funds are included, the gross receipts and charges and services, and a whole bunch of other things that goes into that budget.
There's some different, like water and trash, they have their own funds, and they're the ones that, we hope pay for themselves.
Right.
And most of the time they do. But we have to keep managing that to make sure that they do. But the others, we know that the quality of life things we put in, like tennis courts or golf courses or event centers, and if the different events we do, like Oktoberfest and those.
Right.
What is it, Juneteenth that we do at the park? Those are not going to pay for themselves.
Right.
We know that. So we have to make sure that our funds that can pay for themselves do.
Now, the property tax increase. Now, this is some good news for Beaumont. Increased by 2.5%, but most of that was because of new home construction.
Yes, the property values. Yes, the tax rate is what the cities do, and so if the values go up, like what you're talking about, which they did, then some people will pay more, but it's not that we raised the rate.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I also noticed that there is a 5% increase in the water and sewer rates for this year.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Those are the funds that need to pay for themselves.
Gotcha.
And so, yes, we did do, and if that's what you say, I don't have it in front of me.
I was on the city's website.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody, look, you find all the information you want to know, go on the city website.
That's right.
It's there.
It is, and you can spin off on the Facebook pages for police, fire, all of them.
All of them. Everything's in there.
So we did because we hadn't for I think it's 4 or 5 years, had not raised it, and we really need to keep that fund, healthy.
Right.
However, one of the things too that we did is as not to raise the tax rate because our fund balance, which is like our savings account, our rainy day account, was high enough that we could balance our budget by taking some of that out because it was high enough. And that's why you try to keep that healthy.
Yeah.
The other reason you try to keep that healthy is for things like we're talking about, Imelda,
Okay.
Harvey,
Yeah.
Ike. If we didn't have that money in the bank, we could not come back as quickly. We would have to wait on FEMA reimbursements and all that. We're still getting reimbursements from FEMA with Ike.
Wow. Now, is it mandated by our charter that we have a certain amount, a percentage in our rainy day fund?
It is a policy, and it's 20%.
Okay.
And we are probably going into Imelda, we were probably closer to 30.
Okay.
So that was great.
And so we can use that other 10% for whatever we need.
Right, and we ended up transferring, I think, $1.5 or $2 million from there to our budget, so we did not have to raise our tax rate.
Okay.
Because, as we know, everything goes up every year, and so we're not immune to that. Everything, you give employees raises, your products go up, the things you have to buy go up, just like the consumer.
Yeah.
And so somehow we have to make that work, and we haven't raised taxes for several years. The tax rate, I should say. People get confused on that because it's your value that makes the difference.
And that's we're at 71 cents for every $100 evaluation.
Yes, 49 cents of that goes to our general fund, and then 21 cents of that goes to our debt service.
Right.
So when we'll talk about streets in a little bit, but when we borrow money to do streets, that's like a loan, but we call it we bond. It's a bond, and so we have debt service on that, just like we have interest on our loans.
Right.
And so we try to keep the debt service pretty level. When I was first elected, it was like this. So it was very hard to manage because one year you might have debt service that was a much higher percentage, but we try to keep it very level so it does not change. And so that's how we look at when we borrow money is what is our debt service going to be? How far out do we push it? Because it could be 20 years, it could be 30 years, just like your house.
Yeah.
And so, we borrowed $10 million to do neighborhood streets last year over the 2-year period and the fiscal years. And, that, if you look at it, let's see. So if we borrowed $30 million, that would be every 10, I want to make sure I say it right, that's 3 cents in taxes.
Gotcha.
So you've got every 10 million is a penny. So you either have to, for your debt service, you either have to raise taxes or you have to save about $800,000 somewhere else.
Right.
Because you can't think of it in that year because it's spread out a little bit.
Okay.
So, I'm not a CFO, but I've been doing this so long, I do understand it. And we talked a lot about it yesterday at the council meeting because of some things we really want to do. But do we, I don't think right now is the time to even talk about raising taxes.
Right. Have we ever had a year where we didn't have any debt as a city? I
don't think that'll ever happen because that's the only way that you can. We do try to live within our means. So, if we have cash and we can pay cash for something, we absolutely do. We absolutely do that. But to do long range planning, and we could spend $1 billion and not be able to do all our streets. I got kind of criticized in the campaign because I said that we will never be caught up on our streets, but I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah.
Because by the time you get to the end, you're going to have to be starting over.
Right.
I mean, because some of them are 10 years. I mean, you know, so you could spend $1 billion and you couldn't fix every street.
Because you could go on one side of town 1 year and fix those streets, and then come back 3 years later and fix another side of town, and then go 3 years later go fix another side of town.
But what we really do is we try to spread it all. We don't do
Yeah.
anything in parts. We we look at every area, and we also look at the older areas because they have more need because they're older, whether it be their pipes, whether it be their sewer, anything. And so we typically would spend more in the older areas, but that doesn't mean we ignore the newer areas.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we have to balance keeping what we have in good shape and growing. Because of all the industry that's coming in, we have to prepare for that.
Now, another thing people don't understand is how the city government works. Okay, you know, you have the citizens of Beaumont who elect the government officials, the 7 council people, and then the city council has 3 direct reports.
4
direct reports: the city manager, the city clerk, the city attorney, and the
municipal court judge, the chief municipal court judge.
And that's it. You can't go into a department and say, well, look, I want you to spend money like this.
I'm not saying no council members ever do that, but they should not, per city charter.
but people need to understand that.
Yeah,
you know?
I can't just go to the police chief and say, you need to do this. Well, honestly, the city manager can't even do that. With police and fire, they're different. They're civil service.
Right.
So the chiefs have to make decisions regarding their personnel, not even the city manager. Now, the city manager could go into public works and do that.
Right.
But not the civil service.
But I say that because when you're dealing with the budget, you know, I mean, you just can't say as a mayor, I want to spend $10 million here, $10 million there.
As a council, we give that directive.
Right,
so we do, you know, what the council does is we do the planning and we say we want to spend $10 million and they need to find a way to do it.
Correct.
You know, and if we say but a council member can't very well say, I want to spend $30 million and tell the city manager, but you need to do it without a tax increase because it's probably not possible. Now, if you bring it out through several years and you've got debt falling off.
Right.
You know, it's just something that has to be managed every day. And that's why I'm really proud of our financial team there, our CFO, and they just do a really good job. I go to mayor's conferences, Texas Municipal League conferences, and most mayors and city councils are like their financial condition. They might have to be picking up trash cans, and, taking trash cans out of their parks or something because they're in dire straits as far as finances. And we actually are not, but it's not because. I think it's because of the way we manage it.
That's good.
I believe that.
Well, Mayor, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
Yes.
It's always fun talking to you.
Yeah. And so, hey, listen, we have so much information to share with the public.
We do.
That we're going to come back on tomorrow and share some more information.
Sounds great.
So, hey,
looking forward to it.
So, thank you for joining us today. Come back tomorrow. You make sure you come back tomorrow. The mayor has some more information she wants to share with us. So, I want to thank the mayor for joining us, and thank you for joining us on what's happening in our neighborhood. And we will see you next time on our broadcast.